Right, well I picked up this junker old engine for a little over $300. This is a Ford Cleveland 302, which is unique to Australia. The Americans, of course, didn't use these. Now, people always advertise these things as being suitable for a freshen up or a rebuild, that sort of thing. And engines are very unforgiving, so if you get one thing wrong, you can wind up with all sorts of trouble later on in the first sort of 500 miles, that sort of thing. So sometimes it isn't a bad idea to get one, test out how it is. It might be perfectly usable. So I'm sort of hoping this is. I'm not sure what it's like. I've no idea. A seller can tell you anything. This guy did appear honest. It hasn't run for about 5 years, apparently. So it was outside for a while, so it might be filled up with water. Don't know. So I'm going to put on the engine stand, which is what this thing is, the running stand. This is one that I built. Get it all ready to start it, see how it is, and look, if it's no good it doesn't matter much, but at least it's sort of worth having a bit of a play and trying to ascertain what we can do with it and what use it is to me. So see what you reckon. I'm doing it the long way. There's 2 videos. This one is a bit over half an hour, and of course the next one will be probably about 20 minutes or so. So you can throw them on the ground and start them up with a hose in the cooling system, that sort of thing. I'm not doing it that way, I'm doing it this way. It's long, if you don't like it, just turn it off. But I certainly hope you enjoy it. Filthy old 302 Cleveland. Now, JG34ND. So J being Australia, G being Broadmeadows, 34 being a Fairmont, N being 1973, and D being November. So this is a very, very, very early XB Falcon engine. And this is how I purchased it, for the sum total of $305. I paid him $310 because I didn't have a fiver, and so of course the first thing I've done is stick this on, and that's one I already had. But I am going to try to stick it on the engine stand and start it up. But the first thing we have to do is put a water pump on. I've got to go and give it a nice big bath, just to give it a good clean up. Stick a water pump on it. I've got a second-hand one from Ray, and just take it from there really. I'm sort of excited about it. I like mucking around with old stuff like this. It's got an XC, XD. The guy told me it was XD intake manifold or inlet manifold on it. And you can see here, if I pull those rags out, so I had it covered in plastic last night, you can see the restrictors I was talking about. That's the secondary restrictor to increase the airflow when you open your secondaries with a Carter Thermoquad. And of course this is a non-restricted one. You can see there's no casting there. So I'm going to use this manifold on my 351 engine because I don't want it restricted. My XD, I've got a 302 XD, and I'm assuming it has the same manifold as the one outside, but we'll take a look at that later. Now people are inclined to bag these things. I love them. There's nothing wrong with them at all. I've had quite a few 302s. Some of them go very, very well. Others are very sluggish. A lot of it has to do with how they're set up. So this is a stocky. It's got these things on it. I can't stand these things, so they're going straight in the bin. I'm not interested in them at all. So I'll put the conventional 1/4 inch coarse bolts on. I've got some, and we'll stick a water pump on as well, just to get it to the point where we can give it a good clean and stick it on the engine stand. And of course this is the stuff I like doing the most. You can see these things are pretty knackered, and they've got some random nut holding them on. Now I haven't even taken covers off this or checked it out at all. All I want to do is seal it up, get it to the steam cleaners, give it a good hose, good bath, and bring it back. And of course these are 390 sump bolts, which are 1/4 inch coarse, so they fit. And I can just change them over all these stupid things. And of course if it turns out to be a complete POS, it doesn't matter. I'm not losing anything. I paid $310, and I think it's cheap for any Clevo, that sort of money. The oil's nice and clean. We'll stick our holly on, we'll set all that up, get all that right. We'll put an alternator on it, make sure it's charging properly, all this sort of stuff. And it'll also, I'm going to set up the O2 sensor on the engine test stand, and I want to familiarise myself with that. And of course this can come off, filed under a bench, and we can do the 351, but I don't know, it's like, these are hard to get now, and even if it's a dog, which it most likely is, it doesn't matter, because there's, you know, it's $300, $210. And there's a lot of parts on it, including the block, which are good to keep. And of course, I've got a big block in there that I've had for 10 years. 10 years next year, I've had it for 9 years now. At $390, and I've got the other Cleveland going the XC, I've had that for about 7 years. So, it's almost like when you run out of tissues, you're looking for a tissue, there's none in the box, you open the cupboard, there's a spare box in there, you know. Well, it's like that in the garage. You sort of run out of Clevelands and you look under the bench and there's a spare one there. This has been hanging on the wall for years. I think it's... That's wrong. That must be... there must be a 429 one. 429, 460. I had one of those years ago. I'll try another one. Well, these came with the new water pump. And there's 2 of them in there, and of course the gasket set, the full engine gasket set I'll probably get will have them in there as well. And that looks more like it. So we'll use that one, I think. And I don't use Celastic on these things, I use Permatex. It doesn't leave a mess, it's just better, I reckon, for this sort of thing. Oil leaks and water leaks, I like using this for gaskets. But I'm not holding my breath with this thing, because it is looking decidedly mangy and horrible. Some of these threads feel a little bit... Oh, that's not bad. They feel very nice. I'm just hoping it hasn't been out in the weather. It looks like it's turning over, but I want to see it do 2 full rotations before I feel better about it. Well, I'm running out of daylight now. I've taken this thermostat housing off, and it's pretty well knackered, so I'm going to bin that. I bought this one a while ago, and that's the right one for this car. And of course, I slotted it out for the Wolseley engine I tested years ago, but that will still function quite well there. I'll just make up a gasket and put it on, but I wouldn't mind getting rid of some of that rubbish in there first. Well, I haven't taken the cars out of the garage, and the driveway is a real mess, but I've taken our little 302 and given it a bath. Put a new thermostat housing on because I had one there. Tied the distributor down with a new nicely anodised clamp. It all looks fairly okay, but the first thing we need to do is take the plugs out. Now, just going around here, it does look like it's had a head gasket done at some point. It's got a bright red one down there. Now, it's not a Felpro, it's not a monotorque, it's not a graphite one, I don't know what that is, but this engine was on gas, which means the heads are probably knackered. Well, the first thing we want to do before we mount it on the stand is just whip the plugs out and make sure it hasn't ingested a whole lot of water and rusted solid. So, take the plugs out. And hopefully, I mean, it will tell us a lot about the engine and if it's been burning oil and this sort of thing, but I'm not really worried about it. I just want to make sure that they're not all rusted. And that looks like it's been burning very well. That's good. That's what we want to see. Good. So straight off the bat we've got something to celebrate because these all look like they've been burning quite well. And they're not all rusted up, which means it doesn't look like it's copped a whole lot of water. So that's a really, really good sign. Now at this point it's probably best to take the rock covers off. I'm just going to get a bit of penetrating fluid, spray the bores. Now the gentleman that had this before me said that it last run about 4.5 years ago. So I'll do 2 full rotations. Oh, that's the thing. That's just the dry plate against the sandwich plate. Well, I'm well happy with that, so we can put it on the stand now. Now this thing's been in a car with a neglected cooling system. You can see there that heater uptake is all rusted out. They're just sort of, you can knock those in, you get brass ones. But that's a bit of a concern in some ways because it's still got mild steel Welsh plugs. And so you can bet your bottom dollar that they're absolutely gone. They could be very, very thin. Hopefully she holds water though for the purpose of testing. bit disappointed I have to use my nice new plated bolts. But this thing weighs a ton though. This is a cast iron bell housing. I hope I can get it over. I'm going to bring the engine up a bit. There we go. Oh dear. Right, so I've got it on the stand. Take the chains off, and there we go, we're good. Give it a bit of a rock around. Nice and solid. So now we can start doing more work and ascertain the true condition of this little 302. What do you think, miss? Are you impressed?
Sure.
She doesn't like it. Alana's not into engines much. But this is great stress relief. So we can do away with all this stuff and get on with the task at hand. So here's a little 302 on the engine running stand. I built this quite a few years ago. In fact, I built two of them, one for the school and one for myself. And of course it has all this lovely dashboard on it. And that's the most important thing, even though this isn't a particularly good one, a vacuum gauge. Internal combustion engines are just an air pump, so we need to see how much vacuum it's producing. O2 sensor, obviously, for setting up our carburetor. Obviously, temperature, oil pressure, voltmeter, we can check our charge rate, that sort of thing. And we also have a TAC, independently turn-offable cooling fan, core power, and fuel pump. And I'm using electric on this because the fuel pump it's got is knackered. But not just that, I'd prefer to, given that the Holly was reconditioned, and I don't know if it's going to leak because it was reconditioned some time ago, and of course we can just turn fuel off without the engine rotating or cranking or whatever. We know outside we check to see the spark plugs. If we had a cylinder absolutely full of water and they're all rusted, it's game over. But these were all in very, very good condition, so that's something to be quite happy about. But we don't know how much water, if any, has got inside the engine because I put that on. And so we need to drain the oil out and have a look. And that's just as important as, you know, going out for a nice meal and maybe catching a movie and a romantic walk on the beach. And I'm actually talking rubbish. I don't know what I'm doing. It must be the XW effect. I better just go and cover it up. Oh, gee, that was terrible. Sorry about that, guys. That wasn't very good behaviour. Anyway, we've got an oil drain tray down here with a bit of gear oil, and it doesn't matter. And we can just pop this plug out and just see if there's any water in there. Because, look, there's water. See that? That is water. So water's got in to the engine. I'll do this from the other side so I can see a bit better. Water has got into the engine through the top cover, and that is not all that great because it's going to mean that there's going to be a bunch of sludge in there, but hopefully it's just sat on the top, and so I'm not happy with this. And it looks like it's been outside too if you look at the rust around here, this sort of thing. So we'll take it out. If there's litres and litres, I really might have to take the engine off here and put it on a thing, and that's oil. There actually wasn't much in there, only a little bit, so that's not a good sign, but there wasn't much. So I actually wonder if it might have got in when I engine washed it. I don't think there's anything I left off. I've still got a gasket there. I would have thought it's come through there, so we might take the rock covers off and just see if there's any telltale signs there. Hopefully these gaskets come off in one piece because I'm going to reuse them. I'm not spending a dime on this until I know unequivocally. Oh, look at the gaskets. It looks like I will be. I'm going to be spending money. Anyway, look, at the end of the day, there's a little bit of grey sludge in there. That's water. So that's where the water's been getting through. But one thing is quite good. I think these covers look like they've been put on later. They don't look like they've even been run or virtually not run. They're extremely clean inside. And also the engine is. The engine's, there's a bit of muck there, but This is really, really clean. So it's had oil changes. It has been looked after, which is always a good thing, isn't it? So I'm quite happy with that. Alright, around the other side, similar story. The light's terrible. And of course this little slinger here is broken off there, which resides there. So we'll put a new one of those on as well. But all things considered, it's not too bad. Now realistically the best way to tackle this is to take the sump off and check everything out. Now it did look pretty awful with water coming out of there, but there wasn't that much, so the level of it was probably just down here somewhere. There wasn't much at all. Now there's about 3/8 of an inch clearance between the oil strainer, the edge of the oil strainer, and the bottom of the sump, so it wouldn't have even got to the gauze, I wouldn't have thought. Now water in an engine is not a good thing, and it's always a bit of a concern, and I thought perhaps it might have got in through an open rocker cover filler or whatever, but given that I took these off, and there's big chunks of gasket missing that didn't correspond with what was there, I would think that that water got in when I power washed it this morning, which sort of gives rise to the fact that it was power washed from all directions and this sort of thing. So I'm not even worried about that. I'll just clean up what's there and I reckon it's going to be fine. I'm going to take this fuel line off and keep it, but I'm not going to use it again. I'm going to use it as a map if I need to bend up a new one. 5/16 Bundy tube's quite cheap, so we can just take this off and hang on to it for another day. And of course the fuel pump will get rid of straight away. Right, so peering in where the fuel pump's been, you can see it has got a double row roller timing chain and it's really, really slack. So that's had it, but it also tells me that the engine has been rebuilt sometime in the past, which doesn't surprise me because it's 40 years old, or over 40. Is it 40 years old? Yeah, over 40 years old. It's 43 years old, so that's less than ideal, but given that I've just rotated it, that's the slack side, but at the end of the day, it's no surprise at all. Okay, so we're just putting this blank in, and this was at my mother's place in her garage that I left there when I had my XC in 1987. So I pulled it off to put a facet water pump on, and I didn't like the brrr noise it was making, so I pulled it off and put the mechanical one back on, but it's been sitting there ever since. This thing wasn't even, oh no, it wasn't tight, but it did have oil. I just wondered if you put it on for the hell of it. Alright, we'll just make sure. The oil in this thing's really, really clean. Doesn't look it there, but it actually is. And of course, with any new oil filter, you always need to make sure they come with that little plastic on them. Always make sure you lubricate the seal around there. And you don't have to over tighten them. Don't tighten them with a wrench. Just sort of stick them on. Give them a tighten by hand. The little bit of gasket left is really hard to get off. And the reason is it's got this blue stuff there, and that's Hylamar. And I know that from when I was a Jag Rover mechanic, and they used to use it. I think Rolls-Royce use it too. I use Permatex on cork. Some people use contact adhesive as well, but I don't want to do that there. I'll just put a rag in so it doesn't all fall in. But this Hylamar blue stuff is very expensive, but it seals very well. Now, this of course is a 302 Cleveland, and these engines are unique only to Australia. The Americans were using 351 Clevelands, and this is basically an identical engine, but when they came to Australia we were using Windsors, and then decided rather than using two different engines like the XY did, the Windsor and the Cleveland, it'd be easier and more cost effective, I assume, just to have a 302 and a 351 both in the same engine family. Now they're identical to a 351, the only difference is basically the crankshaft is a shorter stroke, which means it's got a slightly longer rod, and the head's a quench chamber on these, and of course a lot of people put these 302 heads on 351 engines. Now when you buy these things, of course, they've been messed around with a million times. You don't really know what you've got. So the best way to ascertain whether it is a 302 or 351 is to take the pan off, and it'll be embossed on the crank, and I'll show you that in a minute. I think I did one in the XC videos. I filmed the crank in there. So it'll either say 302 or 351, or you can just drop something down one of the cylinders and measure it. And I think we'll do that now. Rightio. We've got a little bit of welding wire here, and I can see the top of this piston is number 5. And I'm just going to touch the top with the wire and drive my finger into the plug hole, and when I withdraw it I can make a little mark there like that. And then of course we can do the same thing down here and that'll tell us our stroke in a roundabout sort of way. So I'll take that out, make a mark. Well, I'm not left-handed, and we can just measure the difference there, and that to me looks like 3 inches, which would be a 302. A 351's 3.5, so it should be a bit longer, but we'll get the ruler anyway and we'll give it a measure. And this is only a very rudimentary way, but we can see there we've got a black mark there, we've got another black mark there. We have ourselves a 302. We've what was I going to say? Yeah, given that this thing's got a broken slinger there, I'm just going round and just turning the push rods just to make sure nothing's bent and they're all running true. Now if you're doubtful about this sort of thing, you can take them out and just roll them across a tabletop and you'll see them like that if they're bent, but these ones all seem fine. Another thing I wanted to have a look at with the valve stem seals, and there they are there, and they're very hard. Sometimes these things break. And what that does is it stops oil sort of settling. You can see it just fell down the valve stem there. Stops oil settling on the top of the valve and through the guide, so they a lot of them tend to blow smoke when you first start them or decelerate down a hill. I do have a bag of new ones here. You know, it's a dirty old bag, but they're brand new FE big block ones from one of the big blocks I've had, and they look exactly the same. So I reckon if this engine tests well, I'll do a little how-to video to replace those with the cylinder heads on the car. We just basically blow compressed air into the cylinder, which holds the valve shut, and we can sort of take the springs off and change those seals round. Now I'm going to leave the rock covers off. I'll put them on when I go inside and that sort of thing, but I want to leave the rock covers off when I'm doing the compression test. That's going to do two things. It'll get oil pressure up as I'm cranking to check each cylinder, and I can also see that oil is sort of coming out from the tops of these. I'll just move that up there, through these little holes here in the top of each push rod and rocker arm. It's a little hole, and oil travels up through the lifter and then sort of comes out through those holes, and that's what lubricates the upper valve train. So I want to keep an eye on all that as I'm cranking it over to make sure the lubrication system is working properly. Now I put this adapter on. Yeah, it's all gummy. Oh, that's because there's that. Yeah, it's full of Prepsol. I put this adapter on yesterday, and the EGR ports in the manifold are being blocked off, so it's just a paper gasket. Also, being an early one, it shouldn't have the head ports opened up, if you know what I mean. If they are, they are. If they're not, they're not. I don't even know. I don't care. But at the end of the day, I want to put the carburetor on. Now, that should be left off when I do the compression test, because that way the most air can get into the engine to give an accurate reading. But the compression tester I got years ago, I don't even care if it's not accurate. I'm not phased at all, because what I'm ultimately looking for is variation between the cylinders. That's the thing that determines the health of it, if you know what I mean. So if we've got 150 in one, we don't want below 135, sort of 10%, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to put the carby on now. And this is the carburetor I'm going to eventually use on the XW. Well, I think I will. I might buy a new one. I'm not sure. See how it goes. And of course, I'll set up on this engine. Then I'll set the thermoquad up on this engine because it's got the right manifold, so I can put that straight on the XC. So this really is a test mule for carburetors and that sort of thing. But look, that's ultimately what I hope. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we'll suck it and see. And of course, these are the carburetor studs. They're 5/16 course on one side, 5/16 fine on the other, and we can just whack them in. I've just got these two nuts here locked together, and then we can just sort of put them down, give it a little bit of a nip, not too much, undo the nuts, and then we can move on to the next stud. Really, you don't need to do that. If they go in easily, we can just sort of do them finger tight. But some of these are a bit stiff, and that's one of them. So we'll stick all these in and lock them down. Not tight. It's only aluminium, so we don't have to go very tight at all. And again, just a homemade gasket out of oil jointing. I always keep a roll of this in the garage. I've gone too close to the edge somewhere. There it is there. Because, you know, this engine could be toast. So at the end of the day, what's it going to cost? It's cost the dregs of a couple of oil bottles I had in oil, a $6 oil filter, a couple of bits of that, and you know, that's about all really. So once I find out if it's good, I can do it properly. But I want to test this out. This is a Holly 600, so I'll just kick the camera again. Electric choke little guy, and it's my brother overhauled it some time ago, and so we'll put that on, and we should get some idea if it's any good or not. So at least we can then regulate how much fuel we put in with the electric pump, and you know, just do things like that, and so that it's a really good way to go. Now this engine stand is a copy of an American product that was, I think, $2,500 to get imported out, and there was three different stages of it, so it was sort of easier for me to make it myself and also tailor it to what I wanted. So I don't use it often, but when I need it, I really do need it. So these are great for running in, or you know, testing carburetors, testing charge rate, testing for oil leaks after you've rebuilt an engine. Last thing you want to do is find out you've got a rear main oil leak. You know, when you put the engine in the car, on this thing you have a good look at all that stuff. Running your camshafts in and annoying the neighbours. So with this one, I'm going to put a quiet exhaust on it. I've got the old 3.6 litre, one's a 221 muffler under the house, and so I'll rig that up to the engine pipe so it's really quiet, and then I can really hear what's going on inside it. And they're great. These engine stands are terrific. Now, when I was a young kid, I used to go to the wreckers and get bits for the cars. I don't know if I can get in there. And they used to stand there with a Holden 6 between their legs and rev them up a couple of times and then put them into stock or cull them. But this way is much more thorough, and you yield a better result with it. And again, when we tighten the carburetor, diagonally is the way to go, and we don't want to over tighten it. You don't want to warp your base plate, and the gasket will have some give in it, so we don't need to go overboard with that. This is a revolting air cleaner. It's just there to stop any muck falling in. I've got about 30 of them around somewhere. I don't know where I've put them, but that'll just keep anything from dropping in, so that'll do for now. Got a couple of Bosch starters here. There's one in that box there and there's one here on the ground. These are both off 302 cars. Now, I always forget which ones use what. Now, 4.9 automatic and manuals use a Bosch, like this one. 5.8 manual, I think, uses a Bosch, and auto uses a clapper, I think. Some of them use a spacer, but that's obviously to do with the sort of depth of the ring gear in here. So some need a spacer because it's a lot closer, and some don't. Most of them don't. I think it's just the manual cars that did. So there are going to be quite a lot of people that already know the answer to this question. I don't. I've got the camera and the light in my left hand. I've got a ruler in my right hand. I'm trying to think what I'm going to say. If I push that in and look at the edge of that, the bottom edge, it's about 16, 17 millimeters off that bottom edge. That's the other side of this backing plate. And there's a rebate here that's going to sit in there. So that's going to mean 16, 17 mil off there. That might fit. It might be alright. I think it's worth a punt anyway. Right, that all looks good. I picked this up as well for 25 bucks from Ray. I don't want it on this engine, but I wanted it for the XC, just to add to this sort of stock look. It's the heat riser thing, and it sort of goes up like that, sort of. Yeah, kind of like that for the air cleaner. I want to use the stock air cleaner. Of course, this one's drilled for it on this side. The XA and XB ones were short, they're only about that long, and the XC and XD ones were a lot longer. They covered the whole manifold, but this one's not been drilled there, which doesn't matter because I've got another manifold for the other engine, so that should all be good. And the worst comes to the worst, I can always drill it and tap a thread there on the other manifold, but I don't think I'll need to. I think that'll be fine. Now, when my father-in-law died last October, there were a few things in his garage, and one of the things I took was this. And of course, no one thought any of this would be used, but I need, it's got Whitworth, I need a 3/8 bolt, and I reckon Has it got 3/8 in there? You know, I've just not stopped using this collection of stuff. Hang on, we'll get a rock washer. And you know, for this sort of thing, I've used all sorts of stuff in here. 3/16 nuts, you name it. I'm sort of hoping this fits. And, you know, bits and pieces lying around. Yeah, look at that, straight in. Brilliant, now I can tighten that up and we're good to go. So happy about that. Right, got a bit of paper and a pen. A compression tester. This is a very old compression tester. It's a screw-in type. I much prefer those. And again, if it's not all that accurate, it doesn't matter much. I'm just looking for variation. Got our engine stand wired up very rudimentarily. Of course, we've got our O2 calibrating itself there. That's not connected. None of this stuff's connected except the oil pressure gauge. I've got a sender there on the back of the engine. All the plugs are out. They've got a screwdriver holding the choke open and a rattle can thing holding the throttle wide open as well. Shouldn't have even put the carby on yesterday, but I did, so not much else we can do. Still haven't changed this little slinger here, but it doesn't matter. All I'm looking for is oil coming out of here. I want to watch the motion of the rockers working, see if they're all working properly, and of course I want to check the compression. So I've got everything ready to go. I think it's got the wrong, it's screaming on the ring gear, but it doesn't matter, that'll do for now. Not a bad practice to put a bit of grease around the O-ring. I haven't done that, I'll do it if I can't get decent compression, but fingers crossed guys, let's go for it. Hopefully we get a good result. So there we've got 130. So I'll write that down, number one's 130. Go for number 2. It's blowing a gale out of these plug holes. That is 105, so that's really not that great. Well, the news is good and bad. It's bad because there's a massive variation. In fact, the highest we've got is 175 on number 6, 105 on number 2. Now, the good thing about that is it's not absolutely without any compression at all. So there is something going on there. I haven't seen any oil coming out through these yet. Now, we do have a problem with compression, and I've found a couple of things. This is the inlet here, exhaust for number 1, inlet and exhaust for number 2. Now, the exhaust is barely moving. If we crank the engine over, if you look at all the other exhausts, this one is only just moving. Which is going to wreak havoc with its efficiency. So a rounded camshaft or collapsed lifter is likely to be the culprit there. I need to get oil pressure up first though. I haven't got anything to see if that bleeds up, and then I can recheck the compression. Well, I'm starting to get oil pressure now, but the battery is beginning to die. And this lifter, we're still, the oil pressure's up, but we're yet to see any oil come through here, but this thing might have bounced up a little bit. So that is a good sign. So that lifter's bled up now, so we'll recheck the compression on that cylinder and see if we can yield any sort of result. Now, I'm still not seeing oil coming through there. We should see that soon. That's good. Now we're starting to get oil coming up through there now. So let's recheck it now that we have an exhaust valve working properly. Straight up to 165. So we've gone from 105 to 165 just because our valves are moving properly. So I should have perhaps looked for that before I did the first test, or at least got oil pressure up before I did the first test. I'm just trying to write it down. And so what I might do is I might just go in and check them again, and we'll have a look at the results then. So the variation now is between 135 and 160. And if you take, what's that, 10% off 160, it's 16 off 160s, 146 I think, 144 sorry. So it's a little bit out, it's a little bit more than 10%, but it's certainly an operable engine. Now, Another thing that could be a considering factor there is the engine's been sitting around for around 5 years according to the previous seller, which means perhaps some of the rings are sort of, stuck in with a bit of carbon into the pistons, this sort of thing. So we'll get it going, we'll get it nice and hot, we'll retest it, and I reckon then, after it's been all retested, it's going to be fine. I think then the compressions will even out even more. Well, hope you've enjoyed this. In the next episode we will put a radiator here, put a fan on, some pulleys, an alternator, sort out all this wiring, plumb it all, make it all nice, and start it up. So, hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.